Hello everybody, it's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty, episode number 11. And today we're going to talk about a few of our favorite things, but we are not going to be Julie Andrews and start singing the song, but you know what the song goes like, you know. So what we intend to do is we're going to show the things that are our favorite in terms of there's something that we can't live without and we reach for all the time. And we're also going to talk about some of the useless things that we have bought over time that we basically sit at the back of a drawer. So we're going to get started. Walter's going to show you a couple of things, maybe categorize them into a grouping.
Okay, scissors that I use a lot during sewing. I use actually either these. I think they're applique scissors.
Yeah, they're applique scissors.
They're like a duck bill type.
That's what
thing.
they call them, duck bill.
Yeah.
Applique scissors.
And these are actually a brand called Quilter Select. And I use these all the time because they really are good for clipping. Sometimes when you're doing garment sewing and stuff, you have to clip down seams and things like that. And these are very handy for that. Plus, they're very handy if you're doing embroidery and you want to cut around the edge of an applique or something like that. So I use these a lot, and I also use these ones a lot, which Steve doesn't like, but
no,
they're curved. And I use them more for embroidery when I'm cutting around the applique because I find they get a little closer than the duckbill ones. But
see, I would disagree. I have both of these types of scissors as well. I love my duckbill ones for cutting around applique and in the hoop designs when I'm embroidery, but I have a pair of these as well, these hooked ones. I never use them. I don't like them because what I find is I find them awkward to get near the applique.
So he finds them awkward, but I've gotten really used to them and I like using them. So for me, they work. For him, they don't work.
They don't work for me.
Now, I also purchased another pair of duckbill scissors from another company. The bill is a bit bigger on them. And they're more of a generic brand, and they're not quite as sharp as my Quilter Select ones. So I tend not to use these very often. I will grab them if I've misplaced my Quilter Select ones. But
that probably
always
happens regularly.
Go to the Quilter Select ones, and that's something I really like. So
okay, so those are scissors. Now speaking of, I'm saving that for the end to show you my most favorite thing, but we both like clips, Wonder clips, and I have 3 different sizes here. These ones I use the most. They're the little ones, and these will take the place of pins in a lot of cases. And this is what I started with when I first started quilting because I'm not good with sharp objects, okay? Pins do have a tendency to stick into me. So these I really like, especially when you're going underneath the sewing, when you're sewing something like, I'll use these to hold binding on my quilts, and they're just easy to take right off, and they have a flat bottom. Now that's the one thing about them. Every time I pick them up, for some reason they turn in my hand, so I have the flat part on the top. And yeah, you can use them that way, but that's not what they're intended for. The flat part is so it'll go right against your table or the bed of your sewing machine, and it makes it easy to pull them right out. Now you've got...
I have the same red ones that he has. I have a couple of other smaller ones too that are about the same sizes. These are actually Clover ones. The brand name is Clover.
Clover makes Wonder clips,
they're called Wonder. And I also have a larger version, which up until recently I never really thought I would use. But then I suddenly realized when I was doing my utility jacket that I have to turn up my hem by 2 inches. And these work great for holding the hem up.
And I use them quite a bit too when I want to. See, look at this. I never was able to do this before. Now I have a beard and I can put things in my beard. Yeah. Okay. Isn't that a nice look? Anyways, I digress. I I do have them in this size as well. These are Wonder Clips. You can get them in a little bit bigger ones. I tend, though, not to use the bigger ones as much. And these particular ones I'm showing you here might be a knockoff. I'm not sure. I did buy a few knockoffs because they were a lot cheaper. Wonder Clips are not cheap wherever you buy them. Original Wonder Clips are way overpriced, but they are an excellent product. But I did buy packages of 100 knockoffs on Amazon for like $16.99 for 100. If I'd bought 100 Wonder Clips, it would have cost me closer to $100.
Yeah.
For that. And they work fine. They work fine. And but the Wonder Clips themselves are a good product. They're just overpriced. And these large ones I use to hold, like when I'm organizing my fabric for my cut pieces for a quilt, I will put, you know, the pieces that are all the same grouping together and hold them with these as well. And I have used these to hold binding too around my quilt. So I use these quite a bit. I like the large ones.
Okay, the one problem, I don't always use these for my sewing instead of pins. In fact, I like pins for certain applications. When I'm doing a cotton shirt or something like that, I find pinning a collar works better than using these things. These tend to, for me anyway, maybe it's the fabric I'm using, I don't feel they hold it secure enough for me. Though I will use them when I'm doing fixing two pieces of fabric together, or three or four or whatever, that I have to run through a serger. Because if you hit a pin through a serger, it'll screw your blade up really bad. So I try not to use pins when I'm using a serger. And but I use these with pins interchangeably depending on the application I'm using. These are great if you're working with a very thick fabric. Then you can't get pins through it. So these are great for clipping thick fabrics together. And
I use Wonder Clips most of the time, as I've already said, but I do have to pin sometimes. And these pins are my favorite right now. They're called magic pins. And they're very fine, and they work really well. And the best part about these is you can iron on top of them because they have a silicone head on them as well. So I really like them. They're not that expensive. I think a package of 50, no, this is 100 pins here, and they come in different sizes. These are 1 3/4 inch I happen to have here. I think I only paid $6 or something like that for that, which is pretty good. Now they do bend very easily, so I have multiple packages of these, not because they were all bending on me, it's because I accidentally ordered more.
I have mainly two different kinds of pins, the yellow head ones, and then I bought the magic pins as well. The only problem is like Steve said, the magic pins are very fine and they tend to bend very easily. So if you're trying to pin through thick fabric, well, there's one that's bent right there.
Yeah.
They don't work as well as a standard pin for me. A standard pin works better when I'm going through really thick fabric.
But one of the advantages of those magic pens bending easily is because sometimes if you want to check out a seam allowance and you're putting two pieces of fabric together and you know it's a tricky one, it might be on an angle or something like that, you can pin along your 1/4 inch seam line with them because they're so fine, and fold it over as if it had been sewn together to see if you've got things matched up correctly. I'll use them for that. And also, if you're trying to get a pin in under several layers, sometimes it helps if the pin does bend a little bit.
Well, I'm not saying I have not bent one of these. I have bent lots of these.
Yeah, I got lots of these too.
But for me, it's not so critical that the seam is actually the right width or whatever. Yeah,
we know. We've seen your sewing.
Ha ha ha. Not as critical as quilting. So for me, doing certain things like pinning a collar or pinning in a sleeve, I tend to use these more than the Wonder Clips. I just find that a little bit more versatile at holding the fabric than with Wonder Clips. So that's what I use.
Okay.
Plus, I have them in this handy little holder, which is magnetic, right? So this is great because I can just throw my pin at the holder and it catches it, right? And the other thing is that if I drop 1,000,000 pins on the floor, I just turn it upside down and collect all my pins.
Maybe I should get one of those. That would be a good thing. I use my own pin cushions that I make for mine. So, and I've shown those on the Idiot Quilter before. Okay, so what else do you have in your little pile of goodies that you like?
Now, I brought this, for marking things for clothes. A lot of people use disappearing ink or something like that. I haven't really found that I like using that very much. So I've got these chalk pencils by Bohin,
I think.
Bohin.
It's just bone. I don't
Okay.
bone.
And they're a really fine line chalk marker. And the chalk you can get in different colors. This one has a white color in it. I think you can get pink, gold, and you can get one that looks just like lead. Well, to me, the lead one seems kind of useless. You can just use a pencil.
Yeah.
But,
Well, yeah, but those are chalk.
yeah.
So you can't just use a pencil unless it's on something where it's not going to be
that's true.
seen.
Yeah, no, so the chalk does wipe off fairly easily. So I use them. I use these a lot to mark where I have to put my buttons on.
How do you wipe the chalk off? Do you use a dry brush thing, or
I'll wet my finger.
Okay, so I was going to ask you if you used something a little dampish for it.
Yeah, a little dampish, and it'll take it right off. Now I have an older model. I don't think they sell this one anymore, probably because they had problems with it. But this held 3 different colors of chalk. So it's kind of handy. You can sort of dial your color that you want, because on some fabrics white show up okay, and this one has pink in it as well. Some fabrics have pink, work better with pink. So I've got that. If you can't get that one that you can dial, you can just buy multiples of these.
I bought one of these too with the 3 colors in it, and I don't use it because it's a pain in the butt. The colors, you have to fool around with it to get the colors. I mean, down here they mark it white, black, and pink, and the idea is you can just turn it around to the next color. Well, that worked.
Well, actually, that one doesn't work that
not.
great, because what happens is
you got
to not push on it. You get the
spit it out. The what
was it? My colors don't line up with the marks that come out. So, but it does work. I've got white there, I've got black there, and I've got pink there. So
no, mine never worked that well. It was missed me. I don't know.
You're probably trying to push on it. You can't push on it.
Oh, maybe that's the problem.
But anyway, I think they had a lot of problems with these. People couldn't figure out how to use them. So that's why they discontinued them, right? So I guess the alternative, if you really like them, is to buy multiples of these. They're not cheap. They're not cheap. The leads are very expensive, and you get 6 leads for, depending on where you get it, you can get them anywhere from about $7 to $12
for the leads.
For 6 leads.
Yeah.
But they do last for a bit of time, and I do like using them. I have not. Some people use disappearing markers. I have not yet used those.
Disappearing markers. The friction pens?
Ink pens or stuff like that. I've never really used them. I've just gotten used to using these, and that's what I use. Other than that, I sometimes, if I can't see where the mark's going to be, I'll just use the mechanical pencil.
Yes, I use a mechanical pencil too for that. If I'm drawing on the back of, to make half square triangles and that kind of thing, drawing a diagonal line, I will just use a pencil, because no one's going to see that. In fact, you usually cut that line off. So yeah, mechanical pencil is something that I just took for granted that most people would have in their repertoire of things. Maybe not, but
no, these mechanical pencils, I went specifically for a drafting pencil because I got used to them when I was.
You bought the expensive ones.
I
bought the dollar store ones.
Well, I don't like the ones with the really thin leads on them. And these have a fairly thick lead, and you can sharpen them, and they're more like a real pencil.
But you can sharpen them.
Yeah, there's a little sharpener in the end.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool.
In the end, you just turn it, and
you got that from Amazon, didn't you?
I bought, actually, it's my old one. I bought a new one from Staples. Oh. And I ordered a couple from Amazon as well. So
maybe I should look into that.
I like them because the lead's nice.
But they're not cheap.
No, they're not. They're about $10 or $12 for the pencil, plus the refills aren't too bad.
These are cheap. Dollar store, 4 in a pack.
But
$1.
these, I really like this one, and I use it all the time. I like the way it.
Well, this is actually a Bic, and I maybe I didn't get it at a dollar store. Maybe I bought it off a supply. I don't know. No, I think I bought them at a dollar store. And actually, I quite like these ones.
Yeah.
They work fine too, but I didn't. But I can't
depends,
sharpen them,
it's one of those things that depends on what you get used to, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. So okay, my turn to show something here. Okay, so let's see. We're talking about pencils and things and marking tools. Do I have anything as a marking tool? Nope, I already showed that. So let's talk about scissors. These scissors. People ask me where I got these because look at them. They're shears. They're flat in the bottom. Why would you want that? When I'm cutting batting, these work great, or backing fabric. When I've got it laid out on my tables that I put together for stuff, you've got a long place to cut. I find that I can rest these on the tabletop, my fabric, my batting in between it, and I can cut a much straighter line with these. Now these are just Fiskars, and I love them. And I saw them at the long arm place that we were going to long arm our quilts at one point, and that's the first place I saw them, but that's not where I bought them. I think I probably bought them at Michael's, and everything at Michael's is expensive. Use a coupon, because that's what I did. But I love these scissors. I use them all the time for cutting backing fabric and for cutting batting. What else you got?
I didn't bring my regular scissors down, but I don't use I use them to cut large pieces of fabric or something like that, but I don't use them as much as like my rotary cutter.
In fact, we're expecting new and exciting scissors to arrive any moment at our door. So if we have to cut this off for a moment, we'll be back, because we did Craft and Chat earlier in the week, and one lady was talking about a company in Toronto, which I'd heard of. It's actually in Mississauga, which is the city next to Toronto, and they're called LDH Scissors. And I saw a whole interview that was done by a YouTuber, Karen Brown of Just Get It Done Quilts, interviewed the owners of it, family-owned business, and they make excellent scissors. And so we went online and we ordered a couple of pairs of 8-inch shears in rainbow color handles and a couple of snips as well. Well, we wanted to get our money up so we get the free shipping. That's how they get us. But we bought seconds. Like their scissors range in price from about $65 and up. And the pair that we bought were regularly $65, but they have seconds, which means there's nothing wrong with the blades or anything or the way they work. It's an aesthetic thing. There might be a scratch or a nick on the handle, but they work fine, and they were like $45, $20 cheaper. So we're waiting for those scissors to arrive today. And of course, I will be showing those in more detail probably next week on the Idiot Quilter. So what else have you got there, speaking of cutting things?
Okay, so for a cutting tool, I use this a lot. I use it for actually cutting out my patterns. I use 45. I tend to use 40.
Okay, why don't you say what it is? I mean, I think it's obvious, but...
It's a rotary cutter. Mm-hmm. I'm sure most people have seen them. But, I have 45 millimeter one, and I have, I think, a 28 millimeter one.
You don't have a 60?
And I have a 60. But I end up using my 45 all the time, because 60s are good if you're cutting through huge multiple layers of fabric, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when I'm cutting fabric, it's usually only 1 or 2 layers for cutting out a pattern.
Sorry for the interruption. We just had a crank phone call.
Yeah, so anyway, so I use this one a lot. I use it for pattern cutting. I use it for, cutting my fabric down to size. But you do have to change your blades every once in a while.
Yes.
Right. Now I found that I didn't find that out the hard way. I know how this works, but people in my sewing group weren't changing their blades on their.
So they must have been pushing really hard.
I started discussing about on one of the chat groups about blades and replacing blades and things like that, and somebody said, well, I've never replaced a blade in mine. So I said, well, you should try it. Right? And then they said, oh wow, it cuts really good now.
That's why they have replacement blades.
Right. So anyway, so I haven't been using the Olfa replacement blades because they're expensive, I've been ordering some from Amazon, and I've been using them instead, and they seem to be working.
And I've bought all kinds of those third-party blades from Amazon as well. And there's one company called Bear, I think, that I buy ones from, and you get like 5 blades for like $13 or $14, whereas one Olfa original replacement blade will cost you a minimum of $20.
Not only that, Olfa sells one that's like an extra
It's
long,
platinum.
Yeah, platinum one long. It's a long wearing one. I can't remember if it's
or not platinum, titanium or something. I think.
I don't think it's titanium. It's something else, but it's
Diamond.
a long wearing one or whatever. And I bought one of those, and I thought, oh, that'd be good. So I put that in, and then wouldn't you know it, about 2 days after I put that in, I ran over a pin.
You're screwed.
Yeah, you run over a pin, you're
screwed.
You're messed up, right?
Yeah.
Because then that spot in the blade won't cut through fabric again. So
now there's different models of Olfa rotary cutters depending on the kind of handle. This one, when you let go of the handle, it retracts it and you can lock it. There are others that don't, or some that have a cover that when you start to roll it along, it rolls back. Those are safety features, because if you've ever cut yourself with a rotary cutter, you only do it once, and hopefully you've kept onto your finger. But then there's others with different shapes of handles for ergonomic correctness and things like that. And this is one. I bought a 45, this is a 45, and a 60 millimeter in these. These come from Martelli. Martelli is a good name in supplies. They're an American company out of Florida. And these were pricey, but not any more than buying a regular Olfa. And the idea is that, it gives you a better angle for cutting. And they do. They work fine. I
bought one of those.
I don't use it.
I bought one of those as well, and I've used it once or twice, and I really can't get the hang of using it.
See, you put your hand on it like this. You hold it in there, and you put your finger on top of this, and you're all protected here, and that's the idea. It allows you to cut more steadily. But I reach for my one that's what Walter has.
Now I have another Olfa. Maybe I should have brought it down, but the cover retracts, but it doesn't retract back automatically. So, and I tend not to use that one because I found I was retracting it and not putting it back so that it was in safety mode.
Yeah.
And I like this one much better because it locks, for one thing. It locks, and so you can't open it.
Well, reach over there and grab mine, because just see it. So here's the same one as Walter has. Hold yours up. But you see mine's bigger. Size matters. But it does this. Now, you might think, well, is that a good feature? Yes, it is. You know why? I had one that stayed open unless I released it to
that's the one you gave me.
Yeah, I did. And thing is, you have a tendency to put it down your table. The blade is out there, and so you see if it's sitting on the table, and then you reach for something. No.
Yeah, that's why I like this one as well. Is I can use that. I can let go of it and just put it on the table. It's still in unlocked position, but it's safe. Right.
Now, you see the Martelli one? Now you may not be able to tell, but I can do this because it does not start to come out until you start to cut. And there it is. But it does not retract unless you hit this little button there, and then it puts it back. So you see, there, it's out. I should turn around so you can see what I'm pushing.
So actually, one thing I don't like about that design is because of the clear plastic cover, you may not necessarily realize whether the safety is on or not.
That's true. That's true. Anyways, I bought one in the 45. I bought one in the 60. I don't use them. As I said, there isn't anything wrong with these. It's just whatever you get used to, and this is mine of choice.
You don't have one of those ones that you can't retract, right? Oh.
No.
Okay.
I also have one they call the Shark. It was designed by Rob Appel, if you know who he is. He has a YouTube channel. It's called the Shark, and it's 18 millimeters. And it's meant for applique, and it works really, really well, especially when you got to go around a lot of little curves and things like that. I don't use it a lot because I don't use do a lot of applique, but it does work very, very well.
I have a smaller one, but I think it's a Fiskars, and it's not as small as that.
No.
One that you're talking. But
Yeah,
I've
it's
never
24.
I've never used it.
It's probably a 24.
Yeah, it could be.
But his is 18. It's very small. So anyways, those are our cutting tools. And as I said, we're getting new scissors today. So excited about scissors. It doesn't take much to get me going. Okay, so my turn to show something of my things that I love. Okay, when in an operating room, you may want to use these. These are called hemostats, or alligator clamps, because it looks like an alligator. Doo-dum, doo-dum, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Also great for pulling out nose hair. Why would I have these, would you say? Because when you're doing embroidery and you're doing things that are called in the hoop, applique or freestanding applique or freestanding lace, sometimes you have to put pieces together, and they're done by a button and eye system where you have a knob that's embroidered right onto the edge of your design, and then another piece that it attaches to has an eye, and you pull that through. Well, if you try to pull it through without having something you can clamp on, and it has to be something small to get through the little eyelet hole, then you're just not going to get it put together. So this is what I use for that. They work really well. Now, if you're into machine embroidery, you can get these on the OESD site, where I buy a lot of my designs. But if you're around an army surplus store or a medical supply store or something like that, you can get them there as well. And you'll probably get them a little cheaper, especially if you get them from an army surplus store, one of those kind of things, or a liquidation store. You know, there's lots of liquidation places that have medical equipment, and that's where you'll find these. And I bought these at a surplus store, and they cost me a lot less than what I would have paid if I'd gone directly to OESD. But these are a must. I love them. The only thing I don't like about them is if you're doing a lot of those pulling through, I find them a little bit uncomfortable on my thumb. It crushes my thumb. So for about the next day, I have a big dent in my thumb. Maybe it's just because I'm soft. I don't know. Soft and fluffy. But definitely, if you're doing embroidery and you're doing machine, freestanding lace or freestanding applique, these are a must. These are definitely a must. Okay, and what else do I have to show? Yes, this is a simple device. Everybody probably has one already, but it's not just for your clothes anymore. A lint roller. I buy them at the dollar store. I buy the refills at the dollar store as well. I can't live without this. After I've quilted something, there's always little threads hanging on the final product. I just whisk it across that, and I pick all the little pieces up. You can see I've just used it recently as well. So definitely something very handy, and I would imagine you would use this in...
I don't use it very often.
You might want to think about it because your room is covered in thread.
I may just do that.
Yeah, you might just, which means you'll probably never get to it. Okay, show me something you got.
Okay.
Every
good sewer needs a seam ripper.
Yeah, if you make a lot of mistakes, but I don't.
Right? So,
ever.
I have a ton of seam rippers upstairs.
Oh, a ton.
A ton. Well, I probably have about under 10, but probably 5, 6, 7 different kinds of seam rippers. So I ended up buying this one. Well, actually, this one used to look like that one, except it had a top. I don't know what happened to the top.
Well, you kept saying you were having a problem with them rolling off your table.
Well, anyway, so I love to use this seam ripper for ripping my seams out because it's nice and sharp, and it's not so thick that it actually gets into the seam really well and all that other stuff. Actually, one thing you didn't bring is your electric one. Oh, yeah, it's over there. You can get that in a minute. Okay. So anyway, I use that all the time. This is my favorite seam ripper, so much so that I bought a second one. And this is actually it's just a different color. It's exactly the same one. But I love the way this thing works. I hate the design of it. It is the worst design. It's a Dritz one, I believe. But it's the worst design. Because if you put this thing down anywhere, it rolls off your table very easily.
I thought they were clover.
No, I believe they're a red.
Oh, because well, the one I've got, it's a clover.
Okay,
And
well, I don't know.
exactly
I
the
don't
same,
know.
but
I don't know.
anyways.
I have to look again. Well, anyway, anywhere you put this on the table, it rolls off. It's tried to commit suicide a few times. It ends up in my garbage can.
Now you're going to tell them about the other problem with it?
Yeah, the other problem with it, this is a really stupid design. Really? It's a stupid design.
It doesn't fit on the end.
Because if you want to flip it, you would think that if you want to flip it over, you could put this on the end. But no, it doesn't. It won't stick. Oh, actually,
and then you might wonder why it's got this big rubber tip on the end.
Actually, it's got a rubber tip on both ends. And
no, you don't know why. Did I not show you what?
Yeah, I know what you do. You can.
Well, you explain it to the people. It's a test.
Take out your stitches.
That's right.
Yeah.
This end is like an eraser. It's rubbery. So when you've pulled up your stitches, you know you got the little bits still hanging up. They're just not really attached to anything, but they're through the fabric. You take this and you just wipe it across it, and it pulls those little threads out, which I think is genius myself. Now, if the damn thing would only go on the end and stay on the end.
And it doesn't, and that it wouldn't, if it was a square design so it wouldn't roll off of everything. It would be good. And I've tried to fix that. Like I've tried to put a rubber band against it. I've tried to put other things
glue
on the side of it. But for some reason that never seems to work. It still finds its way off the end of my table. So the first thing I do is if I can't find it, I look on the floor to see if it's rolled off.
I never seem to have that problem, but maybe have you thought of leveling your tables instead of working uphill? But talking about, is that all you want to say about that seam ripper?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the one I like.
Then I want to show you on a very elaborate seam ripper that I bought. While I'm talking about that, could you grab me my other one over there? Now, these sounded like a good idea at the time. Mm-hmm. They are still pristine because I've never used them. And I'll show you what they are. These are super sharp seam rippers. Pull out. That's what they look like. Like, you know, a miniature version of a sickle. You know, it is very, very sharp. I never use it. Now, the reason I bought it though is, and I should have used it yesterday because I just thought of that and I forgot I had them. There you go. When you're quilting and you're doing a line of quilting and you make a mistake, not that I'm saying this from experience, of course not. Because of the shape of this, you can get underneath those little stitches and pull them out along the thing. Now, I should have used this yesterday because I made some mistakes in the thing that I was working on. And I used my regular seam ripper, the one that I've got the same one as Walter does, and I got them out with that, but I should have used these. But why did I buy these? Was that my whole idea? They were kind of pricey, but I liked the fact it came in this nice little case, and I thought that was really cool. It looks like a glass case. They're called Pro Seam Ripper. I bought them on Amazon, and I think they were something like about 25 bucks or something like that. So these are not cheap seam rippers, but not something I have ever really used.
I bought one that's similar to that around the time that he bought that one, and for the same idea, but I don't use it very often either. I do use it once in a while for certain things. Like, actually, you know what I used it for? One time my embroidery got caught in the embroidery machine where it sucked it underneath, right? So I went underneath it with it and got all the embroidery threads off.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
If you have something that's really thick, that needs to be like a bunch of thread that you need to get through, that you don't think the seam ripper will go through, that does have its handiness.
Well, you know, this whole episode today is about our favorite things and some of the things that are not our favorite things. But we should have had a third category because this would fit into it. It would be those things you bought, they sound like a good idea and they do work, but you forget you have them and you don't use them. And that's exactly why I haven't used these. It doesn't register on my brain because I haven't used them often enough. So there's always that kind of thing. Now, my favorite seam ripper though is the one that Walter has right here in his hand. It looks like, we'll show it. Jeez, what is this? Guess what's in my hand? Give it to me. It looks like a hair trimmer. Guess what it is? It is a hair trimmer. But they market these as seam rippers. They're electric. Takes a battery. And it works like a charm. What I do is, if I've got a long seam that I've got to unpick, I'm not going to use the seam ripper for it, or even those little things. I take a few of the stitches out at the very beginning of the row with my regular seam ripper, and then you just open it up, take this, and you just zip right through. Now you're going to say, but won't that rip your fabric? No. The teeth on this, you won't be able to see it, are very, very fine. So what only goes in those teeth is thread, not fabric. And you can, if you've got a massive amount of stitches to take out, you can zip along through this really well. And I did do a video in the Idiot Quilter back, a couple of months ago or so, and I actually showed how I use this. So you can go back to that and check that. Just go search Idiot Quilter seam ripper or electric seam ripper. Now here's the killer on these. Price. Quilt shops sell these. And I bought this in my local quilt shop. Now at the time when she got them into the store, they weren't selling. Nobody knew how to use them. And they sat there and they sat there. And the price was about 15 bucks, I think, at the time. They've since gone up about 10 bucks. Not sure why. I loved it as soon as I started using it. So it came with me to every class I went to. One day in a class, there was an embroidery problem. One of the people in the embroidery class had a huge bird's nest that formed on the back of their embroidery. And they're going, well, shoot, they'd have to start all over, blah, blah, blah. And I says, no, you don't. We can get those out. So, well, I'm not going to pick all that out. And I says, I have the solution. So if you know about machine embroidery, and if you get something like that, it's a massive, massive mass, interesting, of thread. And so you need to shave it down. Guess what this does? You just go zzz, 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 shave out the layers, you get down to the base of it, and they all fall out and you're fine. Well, while I was doing that, the owner of the store, she looked at me and said, oh, she says, well, she was helping the person initially in trying to get the thing out. She was using a standard seam ripper. And finishing my sentences now. Yeah, okay, fine. So I said, no, I've got a faster way, and pulled this out. She said, oh, I can never get that thing to work. They're useless. I'm going to send them all back. And I went, well, you're not using it right. And I got it out and went right through it in seconds. Got rid of the whole mass of it. And so she got more of them in the store. That's when the price went up too. Maybe just a coincidence. And actually
it was funny because after he bought this,
I was excited.
We were on the way home and he was showing this to me and I go, wait a minute, I've got one of those. It looks, I didn't bring it down with me, but it looks identical to this except it's silver.
It's a different color.
It's silver, okay? I bought one for my mother. I bought it at Walmart in the shaving department for my mother because she had like unsightly hair growing in her
Apparently
ears
it
and
happens
things like that, right? For the nursing home. And it's the exact same one. I think it's a Wall brand or something like that, W-A-H-L. But it's great. And I bought it at Walmart, and I think I paid $10 for it or something like that. And I think I not too long ago, I did still see it at Walmart. And it's just a battery-operated little thing. And it works exactly the same.
It takes one AA battery. The battery will last you forever in it, unless you make a lot of mistakes. But it will last a long time.
Or if you accidentally turn it on in your bag. And then
don't buy it at a quilt store. Don't go under a section on Amazon or something like quilting tools or seam rippers. Go to Walmart or go on Amazon and go under the shaving part and look for them.
Not only that, I was on an embroidery site not too long ago and they had the electric seam ripper, but it was like one that you actually plugged in, right?
Oh.
And it was a shaver as well. And they were charging $115 for it.
See?
And I said, well, why would I do that? I just go buy one.
Yeah.
It's just a shaver.
But it works like a charm. In fact, I was at a retreat with the guild I used to belong to way back when I first joined up. And I was making something and I was constantly having to rip out stuff because I was early in my career. And I'd get one row nice, second row not so nice. So I got this out and I'm ripping away. And they're all asking me, what is that thing? And every time I pulled it out, I said, yeah, I'm manscaping right now. So that was the joke. Every time I pulled it out, oh, Steve's manscaping again. Yeah, whatever. But worth having. Okay, what do you want to show?
So we had rulers the other day or whatever, right? Last time. But, and I did show this last time along with the other rulers that I liked. And it's just a little simple, you know, you can buy this at any sewing store.
Well, it's a hem gauge, isn't it?
It's a hem gauge or whatever.
They call it? I think that's what
so
they call it.
it's handy for if you want to check the width of your hem or your seams or whatever, or you know, if I want to check to see where the middle of my button band is, type of thing. And what I like about this one is that it's got both millimeters on one side and imperial, I guess, standard
Linear
measurement on the other side, inches and millimeters on the other side. So sometimes when your button band isn't quite exactly the right width, it's easier to use millimeters to figure out where the middle of your button band is, type of thing. So that's what I use. I like using this one a lot.
I also have one of those, and I use it just to check my quarter seam allowance if I'm thinking I'm off.
Yeah, so, and you tend to use it more when you're doing garment sewing because you're always messing around with seams, right? I also bought this other one, and I thought, oh, this would be handy because it's a brand name of Nancy Zeman, right? And it's a similar type thing, but all it has is inches on it. So I practically never, in fact, I don't think I've ever used this thing because I just don't find it handy. This is much simpler and it's much handier.
And this one, it was probably cheaper than
that
the
one.
other one.
This one was probably, I think this one was $10, and this one was like $1.50.
Yeah, they're run of the mill. You can get them anywhere.
Been
around for 100 years.
So I wouldn't bother with this one. I mean, some people might turn around and say to me, oh, I use that one all the time.
Well, fine, whatever works for you.
It's whatever works for you. And I sometimes use this, which is my...
and you talked about that.
Yeah, my iron-on ruler. And it helps with my hems, too, because it's got centimeters indicated on here. And each line is a centimeter, which corresponds to 3/8 of an inch.
Yeah, I know. You told us that last
so
week.
Anyway, so I use that one a lot, too.
Repeat.
Yeah, it's a repeat. Okay.
Well, pull up something else. You have more than I do.
Okay, something I discovered quite recently. A lot of times when you're doing clothing, you have to pull a cord through a channel, like a drawstring or something like that, right? So my mother always used a great big safety pin.
Yeah, that's
right?
Standard.
But then you discovered you can get these things, and they're called bodkins. And they're just, these are little clips. They have little sawtooth things on the end. And you push the little ring down, and it clamps your drawstring. And it's a lot longer than your standard safety pin. So it's easier to pull your drawstring through. And there's various ones. There's these other ones that are really big. I haven't actually used one of these yet. So I'm not 100% sure how it uses. But it's called a drawstring threader. So I can't really say because I haven't really used them yet, but I have used one of these, and it's a dream to use compared to.
And those have been around for 1,000 years.
Yeah, and they're not expensive. You can buy them on Amazon. I bought a package on Amazon. I think they were $5 or something. So I mean, I thought that was really worthwhile, and it's something I never even knew existed. I just never really thought about it.
Well, talking about measuring devices, here's something that I find completely useless. It's by Fons and Porter, and it sounded like a good idea at the time. It was not particularly cheap. I remember I was taking a class and they recommended this. So if you're doing half square triangles and you got to draw that diagonal line from point to point, and and then you sew on either side of the line and clip it down the middle. Well, that's what the point is of this, because this is exactly 1/4 inch on either side of a center line. So the thing is, it's pointed up here, right? On both ends. So you put that on your square of fabric and you line the point up with the one corner. And no matter what size, this is about 12 inches long. Most of the time you're not making half square triangles that are 12 inches square. And there's the line in the center, and you just line it up from the one point to the other point, and you can draw on either side of it, and you've got which lines you need to sew on. Okay, sounds like a great idea. I never use it. Why not? Because I've got a 1/4 inch foot on my sewing machine. All I need to do is draw one line from corner to corner. That's my center, and I sew a 1/4 inch on the one side of the line. I flip it around and I sew a 1/4 inch on the other side. Bang, presto, it's done. I don't need this. I have never used it since after the first time I used it the first day. So maybe for some people, they like this. I think it is something that you have to get into the habit of using. But I think it cost about 20 bucks for it, for a piece of plastic. So, you know, I don't really think it justifies the price.
I just realized there's something I forgot to bring down.
What did you forget to bring down?
Anyway.
Well, you can go up and get it. Take off your microphone. We'll be right back. We're back. Did you miss us?
No.
Okay, so.
I just wanted, since I was able to run upstairs, we were talking about the seam ripper.
The electric
seam ripper. And this is actually the one I have that I bought at Walmart.
See, it looks exactly the same.
So it looks exactly the same, except it's not pink.
So there you go. So you're paying for the color.
Yeah. So I have this. It came with my machine, right? Looks like this. I think you can buy one in the store. It's called it isn't like bent like this, but it's similar. It's a piece of plastic that has a hole in the middle, and they call it a Genamajig.
Yeah.
Right. So I use this a lot. I really like it. I use it a lot when I'm going through a thick piece of hem or a thick piece of seam on my a bump, you know, where several seams join on my machine, and my machine struggles to get across it. I stick this at the back of the foot, and it causes the foot to level out, and it allows you to ride right over the hump with no problem.
You also use it when you put on buttons with shanks.
Yeah, I use it when I put on buttons on the front of my shirt to create a shank.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and the reason for that is so that it's easier for you to button your shirt up. There's a little bit of a space between the top of the button.
Yeah. Okay. Don't be taking off your clothes.
No, I know. So that's what I use. I use that a lot. I mean, I hear a lot of people have no idea how to use one of these things. So the sewing group I belong to, they're all supposedly experienced sewers, but none of them know how to use one of these things. So
I guess what you're saying is learn to use one because you won't regret it.
So I also brought down an unsafe. This is the one that he had that didn't like. That was a rotary cutter that opens up like this, like this. So it's open and it stays open.
Stand away from.
So when you cut something and throw it off to the side, it stays open. So if you happen to drag your hand across it, you'll cut your hand. I don't like using that one. I leave that one alone. It's in my bag. I just leave it alone.
Yeah, I had one like that, or is that the one I gave?
That's the one you gave me.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I don't remember it being that color.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, all right. So, other things that I like. All right, for the quilters out there, 505 basting spray. This one I like the best out of all basting sprays that I've tried. Now, before you jump down my throat and go, but it smells and it gets sticky on everything. All right. First of all, I don't think it smells. I have not had any problem with 505. Now, I know there are some that do have a strong solvent-like odor to them, but I don't find that 505 does. But maybe you're more sensitive to the smell than I am. Okay, fine. Remind me never to fart in your place. But do you get it all over the place? Is it sticky? Well, where are you spraying it from? This is the question I have for people. Everybody talks about, oh yeah, you got to spray your quilt and everything outside, you know, and that. I'm not going to wait for a nice day to lug my quilt out and spray it with this stuff. Sorry. Does this get all over my furniture? No, but I'm not standing 30 feet away and spraying it around like an aerosol, okay? I'm not trying to room freshen with this. Yeah, because then it would get on everything. I spray it. It recommends that you spray it from 8 to 12 inches away from what you're putting it on. I find it has good control. No problem with sticky residue on anything. So I don't know what it is that I'm doing right, but all I'm saying is if you're getting sticky residue and you're using this, you're not doing it right, because I'm not getting that. Okay, and usually it would be the reverse roles. I would probably be doing something wrong and you would tell me how to do it right. So the only thing I don't like about the 505 is the construction of their cans. And I don't know if you can see it, but see how my top is crooked and there's gunk on it? And this has happened to me on several cans of this. I don't know if it was a bad batch or whatever, but for some reason that little thing goes crooked. Some of the spray gets underneath it and it's like glue. It's very tacky. So you got to take that off and try to clean it out. And it can also jam up on the sprayer too when that happens as well. So you can fix it, but you got to take this part off, soak it in hot water for a while, and give it a little scrub with like a nail brush or something like that, and possibly even stick a little thin needle, like a magic pin, into the hole in there. But as far as basting sprays go, it's my go-to, and I like it. So sue me if you don't. The other thing that I really like, and we've talked about this when we did irons, so I'm not going to dwell on it, is I love my Rowenta travel iron. Yes, there are problems with this. We explained those in one of the videos about irons and everything. But this iron is, as far as I'm concerned, the best one I've ever bought, and it's great for classes and retreats and things like that. And what else have you got to talk about there?
Well, I've got a few other things, but I don't know if I should.
Well, you just show us some more things here. Let's move on. I've still got some.
So I've got something here called a clapper.
Lights on.
It's basically just a piece of oak wood. You can buy them and they're called clappers. But a piece of wood would probably work as well. If you've got a seam that's really hard to
Well, if the wood has been smooth, though. Yeah. You don't want just a board that's rough. It's going to catch in your fabric.
No, it's very smooth. If you have a seam, if you're doing seams, especially on clothes and that, and you're having a seam that won't lay one way or the other very well, or doesn't open up very well, after you steam it for a second, you lay this on top and you press it, and it'll flatten your seam right out.
Now, you see, I wondered if something like that would work for us quilters as well, because sometimes we get stubborn seams that we can't get down, and I use a spray on those ones called Acorn Precision Pressing Spray, and that works really well. But I should try this sometime and just see if that will work as well on those kind of things, because it might.
Yeah, and I use it.
Are they expensive?
They're not particularly cheap. They're
about because they're
$20 or $30.
Solid piece of wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like using it. So I don't use it all the time, but if I have a stubborn seam, that's what I use. I don't have any of your acorn stuff. So.
Oh, I've got a gallon of it.
Yeah. So
if you want to try some, you can. And why don't you get over there?
Well, I brought these down, but it's really only good for garment sewers and if you're doing men's pants.
And what is it?
These are templates for figuring out where your seam goes on your zipper at the bottom.
Oh, well, we won't demonstrate that right now.
No. So
okay, so show them to the people.
Yeah. Okay, they're just guides. You can actually make your own from a piece of paper if you can, but they're not, or from a piece of cardboard, but they're not see-through then. And they have buttonhole guides at the bottom as well. But most of us have automatic buttonholers, so you don't really need to use them. But these are good for trying to measure. If you look at the bottom of a pair of pants, you'll see that there's a top stitch that goes all the way down and curves at the bottom of the zipper. Mm-hmm. These help you figure out where that curve is.
I see.
So, and actually they're very handy for that. And anytime I've made a pair of pants, that's exactly what I have to do, is I have to use one of these to figure out where.
Does one size fit all?
There's actually two different sizes. It's a 1.5 inch size.
There was a joke in there somewhere, but never mind. Never mind on it. So let's see, what else do I have to show you here? Oh yes, this. Speaking of seams and flattening them. For quilters, this tool. This is a violet. Could be violent if you hit somebody in the head with it. A violet craft tool. It's a seam presser, and you know, when you finger press something or whatever, or you're pressing seams open, but you don't want to get up away from your sewing machine to go over to wherever your iron might be for this kind of thing, you can use one of these, and believe it or not, it works. You just go, you just against the seam just like that, And it's a piece of hardwood that's shaped in such a way that the pressure is even across it. And you probably have seen these before because these have been around for 100 years. Violet Craft, that's actually her name. I just saw a video with her on it today, and that is her married name. Her last name is Craft. And she does a lot of things in pattern designs and things like that, and she does a lot of applique. So it's great when you're doing applique or hexes and you want to flatten down, you know, the edges of your fabric when you're wrapping them around the form. It is really good. It's like a manual iron in some ways. So, and I do use it. I use a lot more than I thought of when I bought it, and they're not that expensive. I think $15 or something, or maybe less. And remember, we're talking Canadian dollars, so if it's American, it's 50 cents. And another thing that I really, really cannot live without are my boxes, my project boxes. Now, way back before I got into quilting, I was using these for my crafts. You know, I put everything together for something I was working on, or scrapbooking things and stuff like that. They're 12 by 12. They would hold a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. Well, now what I use them for are my fabric projects. When I've got a project all cut out, let me grab one right here. I just cut out pieces for my next quilt, and they all fit very nicely in this box. Bit of a glare on there. And yeah, you can label them. I usually label them on the side, and they sit right behind where we're recording right now on my table, all up on their end, and they're all marked, they're all labeled, and I know what's in those project boxes, and I can see too. Now this one was a colored one, but you can still see into it. Most of the time I buy white ones, but I have a few colored ones as well. So you get them at Michael's, and Michael's does not allow you to use a coupon on them. They're usually about $4.99. They may have gone up to $5.99 again. But they're great for storing stuff and keeping yourself organized. Speaking of organized, little blue baskets. I have many little blue baskets. In fact, I'm looking right now behind
us.
the Retico. Well, that was actually behind them.
Behind your camera.
Behind the camera. And I have shelves, and they're all marked with colors on them because all my scrap fabric go into these. And then if I need a piece of blue for something, I just go to my blue basket, pull it out. And they're great for when I want to organize projects. I'll put embroidery threads in them for a big project. You know, it's just a way. I like containers. I have a thing for containers. So, and another thing I really like is this little pointy tool. This is a metal rod. Basically, I don't know what they called it, but it's for poking out the corners on things when you turn them around. There's a blunt end here, and you can use both ends depending on how big your corner is. Works really well. It doesn't bend. It's, you know, substantial. I mean, yeah, sure, you could use a crochet hook. You could use the end of your scissors, but the scissors might poke through.
Oh, I don't use that.
I never use that. There's the purple thing, which everybody raves about, the purple thing, which is a piece of plastic with a blunt end on it too as well. I've looked at the purple thing, but I've never bought the purple thing. So
actually, I think I bought a purple thing in my latest order.
Oh, did you? You bought a purple thing, but I don't know. This one, yeah, this one cost me more. They saw me coming. Bought it at my quilt store.
I usually use my crochet hook that I have sitting in my desk.
Yeah, but I use this, and I like this. I paid a lot of money for it, so I'm going to use it. So that I like. And of course, you've heard me talk about before. I have several of these.
Yeah.
My wool pressing mat. Now, yes, these are not cheap. This is one size. They come in various sizes. I have a much bigger one. That's the one I do most of my pressing on, and the only reason I'm showing you this one is because it's easier to get into the shot, and also it's cleaner. My other one's getting a little gungy looking, and that happens with them. It doesn't reduce their ability to work. Lifespan, yeah. Excellent. They are worth the money. They hold heat. Just don't put it on top of your cutting mat because the heat goes right through it, especially when you steam, and you're going to have a big warp in your cutting mat. Ask me how I know. But as I said, and if you're doing embroidery, they're great. You put your embroidery, the good side, face down on this, take your steam iron to it, give it a good press with that. It goes right through. It flattens your embroidery right out really nicely with it. So yeah, it is a good investment, a wool mat. So you have anything else you want to show us?
I think that's it.
That's it? Okay, well, a couple of things that I don't use much or don't like. These are useless. What are they, you're going to say? Well, they sounded like a good idea. They call them quilt clips. Gently holds the bulk of your quilting when quilting. And they have a little picture here. In fact, I've never opened this package up. I don't know if you can see it through there, but you see, they're showing. You roll it up so it's underneath the throat of your sewing machine, and this holds it all together, and it's easy to slide it back and forth. No, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, it holds if you're doing a baby quilt. Maybe a twin. But you get into a king or a queen size, here's one out of the package. It's just a piece of hard plastic. You bend it too far, it will snap. It will snap. On top of it all, it catches on the edge of your table and that. I never use them. Should have known that when I saw them sitting at the quilt store on sale. They're not that expensive. They're $6.99 for a pair of them, but they were on sale for something a lot cheaper than that at the time because they were trying to get rid of them. And yeah, I don't recommend them for that. So that's something that's in the cast-off pile. Another thing, these stupid things for holding your threads. Okay. Thought they were a good idea. I have about 4 of them. And they're for your bobbins, right? Well, yeah, they're okay if you've got, like, you've left space, but you try and get these little suckers out once they're in there and they're, you know, you filled it. Like, no.
I have a pair of pliers to do.
So you have to kind of pop them out. And no, I don't like them. I just use them right now to hold cast-off bobbins of stuff that I don't reach for all the time. I actually devised my own and printed it on a 3D printer that I like much better than this. So I don't know, some people may swear by these. These have been around for 100 years, you know, the little donut things. And there's tons of bobbin holders out there, so to choose from. Okay, so only one more thing. My most favorite thing. Have you shown your most favorite thing?
Yeah, probably my seam ripper, right?
Oh, okay, you started with that. Okay, these are my most favorite thing. These little snips. They came with this lanyard. They are official Janome snips. First thing I do when I come down to sew is I throw this around my neck, and my little scissors are sitting in there, my little snips. And you know, I never have to go, you know, all over my desk looking for it. They're there around my neck. Pop them out, snip, snip, snip. Put them back in, bang, done. I love these. Absolutely cannot work without them. In fact, there are times when I've been working all day and I go upstairs and I realize I'm still wearing them. And there's a little plastic tube on the end of this. Here, strangle myself. Some people would like that. Little plastic tube on the end. This is not the original. The other one got a little mucky. You know, you're constantly in and out of here. You've got junk on your scissors from, you know, you just get junk on them. It just happens. So I decided to replace it. I had a little bit of this tubing sitting around. I just cut off a chunk, threaded it back on the little ring. It's just a key ring kind of a thing. And it works dandy with it. So yeah, I cannot live without these. This is my most essential device. So I think that takes us to, we talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And when I first planning this, I thought, I don't know, what are we going to talk about? I mean, I don't know. It's amazing when you start going through your drawers, the things you find, or the things you forget because you use them so often because they're your favorite thing. You don't even think about them, you know, it becomes routine. So anyways, I hope maybe there are some things there that you have never seen before or whatever. You know, I hope it helped you out a little bit. That's what we aim to do here on So Chatty. And so next week, I'm not sure what our topic's going to be. In fact, I have a whole list of different topics, and I'll have to consult with his nibs about what might be grabbing him at the time. I was thinking about talking about some of the specialty feet for your sewing machine and how to use them. There might be an interest in showing you how you use the button holder, which is more Walter's thing because I don't use that very often, but I have used it. So maybe we'll pick out a few of the feet that may have come with your sewing machine, but you've never really used because you're not sure what they're used
and,
for.
And there's some interesting things that I found using some of the feet that you use in quilting for sewing garments.
So crossover.
And stuff like that. So
that may be what we'll be doing next week. That will be we'll probably be doing that one up in maybe Walter's sewing room or something, because I have a feeling that show's going to be more Walter than me. I know. You're going, yay. Turncoats. Anyways, so that's maybe what we're doing next week. So you'll have to tune in and find out. And for those of you that follow me on Idiot Quilter, I have a very special announcement on the next Idiot Quilter next week. A new segment that I'm going to be doing. In fact, it's going to be more than just a segment. It's going to be another series that is somewhat separate but somewhat related to the Idiot Quilter and other things that we do. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. Hope you had you learned something and found it enjoyable. And we'll see you next week. So say goodbye, Walter.
So goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye, all.